You are listening to the Information Security Notes and Podcast, episode 20, original release on August 14th, 2020. My name is Josh Amishav. This week we have Robert Baptiste with us. Robert is the persona behind the Elliot Anderson, aka F Society, Twitter account with its 226,000 followers. Robert is probably best known for exposing flaws in various high-profile mobile apps like Aadhaar, OnePlus, and even Donald Daters. We discuss how he bypassed limitations in the Indian government's COVID tracing app to figure out how many sick people were in the Parliament building, as well as what he discovered when he reverse engineered TikTok. Direct support for this podcast comes from BreachSense.io, the data breach monitoring platform. You know the easiest way hackers break into your network? By using valid usernames and passwords. Attackers collect millions of leaked credentials from almost daily data breaches, but without having any visibility into which of your employees or users' credentials have been leaked, it's tough to protect against this. Integrate BreachSense's powerful yet easy-to-use API into existing security solutions to prevent account takeover and stop online fraud. Robert Baptiste, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Thanks for coming on. Can you tell us how did you get into mobile app security? How did you get into security?
So first, I started my career as an Android developer. So I was working for Intel Corporation, creating some internal Android application for teams like audio teams and other teams working on Android. And then I switched to another team working on the power and performance. And what is really interesting was when you work on a team like that is when you have a power issue in Android, it can come from different level. It can be a hardware issue or application issue. So it gave me the capability to step back a little bit when I'm trying to debug something and have the big picture of how Android is working on everything. And then I switched to the security. So I decided to work on mobile security mainly because this is what I knew, and I found a lot of security issues in Android application mainly, but also in web application, and I worked on application on the website, governmental application on the website, mainly in France, but also in India.
Okay, I've seen also you've done a lot of research on various Indian apps that I'd like to touch on as well. One of the interesting things that you recently came out with a blog post about you reverse engineered TikTok. There's been a lot of news, especially coming out of the States, about banning TikTok for supposed national security issues. Can you tell us what did you find?
So what I did, I wanted to put facts back to the table because we can hear today the TikTok controversy is really high, and a lot of people are talking without proving anything. So I wanted to just go back to the technical facts and say, okay, this is what is really happening. So I used my lab, and I just opened TikTok and monitors the network request made by TikTok. I noticed some log upload every 5 minutes, and this network request were sent an encrypted content, and so I used Frida in order to decrypt the content of the request, and I saw that the log upload is quite normal. TikTok is not uploading unusual data. What you can find in the JSON uploaded is some device info, some info about the user, but it's very basic info like the country, the country where you are, the type of the connectivity, or this kind of things. So this is really not specific to TikTok. And this is something you can find in a lot of applications, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook. They are all doing the same thing. So it's really not specific to TikTok.
Okay, and you mentioned initially the request had an encrypted portion within the request. How did you figure out how to decrypt that?
So it's when you have this kind of issue. So if you are monitoring the request made by an application. So you noticed, okay, this request has an encrypted content. You have to go back to the source code. You have to decompile the application, get the source code of the app, and try to find the place where this request is made. So this is what I did. I searched in the code where the log upload request was made in the code. So I managed to find a method which was called something like send decrypt logs. And in this method, the parameters, the input of this method was the content of the request, the unencrypted. So it was pretty easy to just intercept the call of this method and just intercept the content and say, okay, this is what TikTok is encrypting.
Cool. Could we talk a bit about your approach to dissecting or to running security tests on mobile apps? Just start with do you prefer a physical device, a VM? What are some of the tools? What are the things that you start to look for when you first look at a new app?
Yeah, so I think we have like a lot of people in mobile in this area. I'm using a physical device, so I don't like to have a lot of tools, to be honest. So I wrote some free decrypt in order to intercept what I want to intercept. And I'm also using JEB, which is the Java decompiler, in order to get the source code of the application. And I think that's all. So what I'm doing when I am analyzing a mobile application is I'm trying to answer to a simple question. For example, you have to, if you want to analyze an application, you have to use the application first in order to know what the application is able to do. And then you have to ask yourself a simple question like, okay, what is happening if I'm searching something in the search bar or something like this? And then you can investigate and look at the source code, analyze the source code, and see the request made, and etc.
So essentially, you're just going through all the functionality that the app offers. So it's like spidering, but manual spidering. Okay. So then you've captured all the requests in something like Burp.
Yep.
Okay. And then what are the next question you're answering? What else do you look for?
It really depends of the context and the term of the engagement I have with my client, or if I'm working on my own. So it's depends of what I want to do with this application. But yeah, basically, you have some area where you can have more issues. For example, if an app developer created his own cryptographic protocol, you might want to look at this first. This kind of thing. So it's really depend. I also wrote another article a few days ago where I looked at a job application, and in this application, I was able to see some calls, some network requests to Firebase, to Firestore. So this application was using Firestore in order to store information about the project, but this application was also using its own backend. So you had some code at app.target.com. So api.target.app. So I decided to focus on this backend first, because I know developers customize their own backend, and if I find some errors, it will be in this custom thing.
You're talking about like the backend database that the application's using.
Yes.
Not on the phone. Okay. Yeah. Could talk about you did some research into an Indian COVID tracing app.
Yeah. So a few months ago, India decided to launch contact tracing application in order to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. And this application is called Arogya Setu. And they decided to force people to install this application by law. So, for example, if you didn't install the application, you were able to go to jail and this kind of thing. So I decided to look at this application, and I found two issues. One was a minor, medium security issue, and the other one was a more privacy issue. So in this application, you had the possibility to know how many people were infected by COVID-19 in a circle around you. And you were able to choose the radius of this circle. So you can ask to the application, for example, okay, how many people are infected in a circle of a radius of 500 meters, 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers. So I use this functionality, and when I tested this application, there were no limitations at all. So I was able to pinpoint this circle in the place of my choice and to use the radius of my choice. So I was able to center, for example, this circle in the Indian parliament and set the radius to something like 100 meters. And what I found is in a lot of official places like this, like the Indian parliament or the prime minister office, some people were infected by COVID-19.
That's very clever. So, and in order to do that, the steps that you did, you decompiled the script, decompiled the app. You change the source code using Frida on the fly to be able to do this. Is that the process?
So for the Indian application, for example, what I did is I looked at the application. So I used the different features as a normal user. Then I decided to monitor the network request made by the application when I use the application. So I saw this is how I was able to intercept the corresponding network request made when you ask how many people are infected around you. And then I looked at the request itself, and I asked myself, okay, what is happening if I'm modifying this parameter? Because the radius are coded in the application, so the user doesn't have the choice to, for example, use the radius of each choice. He cannot ask, for example, I don't know, 500 kilometers. But because I have the request in front of me and I am able to repeat this request, I can modify the parameters.
Very cool. So that was just straight up the backend network request to be able to access that data. Wow, very cool. Okay, I know you had a previous interview I listened to. You talked about, I'm trying to remember the name of the app, something with I think something with Donald Trump, that you were able to play with the database. So can you talk us through the technical aspects of what was done, what was found, and what needed to be manipulated to access that data?
So I think it was 2 years ago, something like this. This application was called Donald Daters, and it was like Tinder for Republican. And this application has been published on Friday, something like this. And 2 hours ago or 3 hours ago, I saw a tweet on made by Fox News. Saying, okay, a new application is available, Donald Daters is for Republicans. So I decided to look at this application 3 hours after the release, and I managed to access the entire database. It was, on the technical side, it was super easy because these guys used Firebase. They used Firestore, which is a real-time database offered by Firebase. And they didn't modify the settings of the access settings of this database. So they kept the debug settings, and everyone was able to browse the database, the production database. So in order to access to the content of the database, you only had to add .json at the end of the Firebase URL, and that's all.
Okay, and that you saw, basically you reverse the app and then you see the URL?
Yes, you just have, for example, a lot of applications are using Firebase in order, because Firebase is offering a lot of services, and this is very convenient for a mobile application developer. So you just have to
Can you explain a
decompile.
bit what Firebase is for people who aren't familiar?
So Firebase is a company. I think it's a Google company, no? And Firebase is offering a lot of services. You have Firestore, for example, which is give you the ability to have a real-time database, and you have Firebase Analytics, which give you the possibility to have some very precise analytics on your user, on all the users are using your application. You have some lab testing thing where you can test your phone on different, you can test your application on different phone, this kind of thing. So this is a big toolbox, a big set of services for mobile app developers. On Firestore, the database thing is used by a lot of developers. And this is super easy. If you go to the documentation, you can see this is super easy to set up. So you just have to decompile the application of your choice. You look inside the strings.xml file, which contain all the strings used by the application, and in general, the URL of the Firebase database is stored inside the string.xml file.
Now, you recently had another blog post about I think it was a French facial recognition driver's license app.
Yes.
And then you did something similar to prove that it was actually, I think, a Dutch company using US funds for the development. Was that also in the strings XML file, or was that did you do something else with that?
No, it was a little bit more complicated. So this application is called Alicem, and this application is the new digital identity French program. So they have some difficulty, but in France they want to put in place a digital identity, and Alicem will be the mobile application for that. What I did is before the launch of the application, I managed to get a sample of this application. So I decompiled it and I looked at the application. And in this application, I managed to find some very specific strings. I took this string, searched on the web, some similar application, and I managed to find that Gemalto, the company behind this application, already made another application like this. So I managed to find that this application was a fork of an existing product, which was used already in the US, and Gemalto, which is an international company, gets some funding from the US government in order to create this product.
Cool. If somebody wanted to get into mobile app testing, where would they start?
You just have to start. I mean, you just have to take your first target and try to decompile it. I think at the beginning you can be lost very easily because you have a lot of things to look at and you don't know where to start. So this is why you should open the application, use it like a normal user, and try to answer to something very specific. Like, okay, this application is not offering this feature, but this is what I want. So I will hack this application in order to get what I want. So in order to get what I want, I need to understand how the application is working, or I can modify the logic. If I need a new tool to do that, I will create this new tool, etc., etc. So this is all you should. This is really the hacking mentality. You need to take a system as it is and say, okay, or I can modify this system in order to do what I want to do. That's all.
Okay. In terms of tutorials, anything that I don't know if you're familiar with anything for someone from the beginner that you can point them to. Do you have anything in mind that would be appropriate?
The only advice I can give is if you want to start to look at the Android security, you should it really helps to know how an application developer is thinking when he creates an application. So it really helps if you know how to create an application yourself. So you can go to the official Android website, and you will have a lot of tutorials on how to create an application, or to create a specific functionality inside an application. And it will give you a lot of insight when you will decompile an application and see, okay, the developer wanted, for example, to get the content of the clipboard, but this is for this reason. And because I know how to do that, I will be able to modify this functionality.
Cool. Now, one of the things you mentioned in the beginning was that you prefer to use a physical device over a VM, a virtual machine. Why is that?
Why not? I mean, I'm used to this physical device, and sometimes because I'm also doing some malware analysis, a lot of malware has some functionality in order to see that you are in a virtual machine or in an emulator. So it's always good to test your malware on your physical device than instead of an emulator.
Okay. CamScanner, I think about 2 years ago, had some malware in it. Did you do any research into that?
Yes, a little bit. I think the blog post you're referring to is I explained how to get the content of the malware inserted in CamScanner. So basically, in this story, I think CamScanner was an application downloaded by millions of people, and I think one of their one of the SDKs they used in the application was loading a DEX file dynamically. So what I explained in this blog post was how to retrieve the content of this DEX file. So except that I didn't push the investigation further, but as far as I remember, the DEX file was the malware. It was not super special. I mean, it's always the same thing.
Yeah. Okay, now I was just thinking in terms of like, besides for CamScanner, any other, we all have lots of different apps on our phones, or most of us probably do. What steps could we do to ensure that those apps weren't doing anything malicious?
It's a complicated question. It's always before downloading an application, it's always good to verify who created the application. Is it a verified developer? Is it a developer I can trust? So if you need, don't download an application with few download. Don't look at the advice. Sometimes it's look at the reviews. Sometimes it's very helpful to see, okay, this application contains a lot of ads, this kind of thing. Yeah, if you're not technical, it's complicated to do more than that. If you are technical, you can look at the network request made by your phone and see what is happening really behind the curtains. If you are not technical, I mean, you have to choose carefully your application, but that's all.
Okay, because even like popular ones, like I think about 2 weeks ago, LinkedIn on iOS was were they accessing the clipboard.
Yeah, it was the same thing with TikTok, and it was more than 1 month ago because in iOS 14 you have a notification when an app is accessing to your clipboard. So this is why everyone started to get mad, because they realized that a lot of applications looked at what the clipboard contained. So I think there is good reason to look at your clipboard, and this is a gray area for years in mobile development. This is the exact same thing in Android. You can have a lot of, and this is something used a lot by malware developers in Android. For example, look at what you have in your clipboard. So this is really not something new. And this is I like the fact that the OS allow you to have this kind of information, give you this information that, okay, this application is looking at your clipboard, so this is a good thing.
Does Android give you that functionality?
Natively, I don't think so. But I think on Android, you have a specific permission. They added a specific permission for application if they want to access your clipboard.
So you'd have to grant that permission when you install the app?
Yep.
Okay, so as long as you don't, then you would have some control over that.
Yep, which is not the case for iOS.
But iOS, you get notification when an app tries to access the clipboard.
In the upcoming iOS version.
Okay. Can I ask you a loaded question? Android or iOS?
Both. I have I have an iPhone for years as a personal phone, but for my company phone, for example, is Pixel 3. So.
Okay, so you're comfortable in terms of security using either one. They can be both insecure, both secure at the same time.
I don't really have the choice, to be honest. I used a lot of different OS, and I'm using an iPhone because I'm using also a MacBook for years. So it's good to have everything in the same ecosystem. But yeah, I know what is really happening in terms of privacy, and you have to do some trade-off.
Yeah, that's great. All right, now if people want to follow you, I know you've got a very great, very interesting blog post. Can you tell us a bit about your company, what you do, and where can people find you?
So if you want to find me, the first place is Twitter. So you just have to go on my Twitter. My inbox is open, so you can send me some messages without any problem. You can also send me an email. My email address is available on my Twitter description, so don't hesitate to send me an email. I'm trying to answer to everyone. I'm reading everything, but don't send me a message just saying hi or can I ask you a question. Go straight to the point and I will answer you for sure. My company at this moment, I created my third companies called Predicta Lab. This new company, the activity of this company is started this month. So I created this company in order to fight disinformation. And with my coworker, I will develop a solution in order to find the viral news, to be able to identify the viral news here and detect the significant event, and then detect the disinformation associated to these events. So this is I'm currently developing this product, and I will try to create a product. I will try to sell this product in the future.
The plan to have that completely automated, or is that going to be
hybrid? Everything will be automated, and the main goal is to give to our client the possibility to get an alert on what is happening in the world before the mainstream media announce it. For example, if a terrorist attack is happening somewhere, we will listen to social networks and different sources of information in order to get to analyze the low signals and to give you the information before mainstream media got it.
Wow, that is a very interesting problem to solve, and completely different than the mobile app security.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. Well, that's it for today. If you have any feedback or questions, please contact me at podcast@breachsense.io. As always, the show notes are at breachsense.io/podcast. And if you got value from this episode, then share it with a friend. See y'all next week.